Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Dr. Mew Tomlinson. Dr. Mew Tomlinson is an incredibly talented individual. He is the author of Less Than 1%, an emergency room doctor, and CEO of Vituity. You can find out more about Dr. Mew Tomlinson and his wonderful work at his website, vituity.com. Welcome, Dr. Tomlinson.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you.
Now, Dr. Tomlinson, your book, Less Than 1%, is a call to action for rethinking leadership, challenging systemic bias in medicine, and encouraging people to find their 1% edge, the authentic superpower that sets them apart. How does an individual go about finding their less than 1%?
Yeah, so it's I have to give a little bit of history. The book is not about me, but it starts with a story that kind of changed my perspective on things. I was a middle manager and had an executive coach who then said to me one day, "You need to challenge yourself to do more." And I said, "Well, I really don't want to do more." And then he said, "Well, think about some C-suite jobs you would do." And I mentioned, "Well, the CEO, that's kind of cool. I feel like I can lead people, maybe inspire a little bit, make other people better." And he said, "There's no chance." And I said, "You got to give me a number." And he said, "Less than 1%." So it just made me think about all these other situations in the world where we pick winners and losers before the race is even run, and where we try to put people in boxes. And so wouldn't the world be a much better place if we could be our authentic selves? And how much more greatness would there be? So what I tell people is really you have to think about whatever skills you have that are wonderful and amazing. Those are the skills you should use to change the world. I think books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, they're great books, but they really focus on 7 habits, when really there are probably 55 habits, and whatever the habits you are, you can use them to change the world. And so that's really the idea behind Less Than 1% is really to find the core of who you are, be authentically that, and then go change the world with it.
Very cool. Now, Dr. Mew Tomlinson, as a medical intuitive healer, one of the questions that I frequently get from my new clients is like, why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? How can finding our superpowers help us to understand why we're here?
Yeah, that's a really, that's an age-old question. Why am I here on this planet? And probably have a whole podcast just based on that. I think really what you look at is that I think when you find out what is intrinsically your superpower, something that you do, remember, this superpower is something that doesn't consume energy. It's something you could do all day and all night, right? Whether it's painting or writing or something that's in uniquely something you do. And when you're doing it, you're going to impact the world. So I say to people, I don't know if you need to find a purpose. I think you need to find out what makes you happy, what is that thing that you do that when you do it, you feel like you can change the world, and then just do it. The whole idea of purpose will come after that because you'll be changing people's lives without even knowing it. Like one of the things for me, I did a interrogative session with Simon Sinek. He does these why interrogatives. He had me crying, of course, and laughing. But when we finished it, he said to me, "Moo, your purpose, your why, is to inspire people to do the work necessary to be greater than they ever thought they could be." And when he said that, I started crying because I didn't really know what my purpose was, but I know what my actions were, and he interpreted that to, my overall purpose in the world.
Okay, well, I'm going to get personal. So,
Okay.
what is your superpower?
My superpower is actually relentlessness. My superpower is I have this weird thing that I can't stop doing. I cannot stop. So whatever it is that I'm doing, whether I like it or not, which is interesting, I do it to the nth degree. If you said right now, Moo, let's go lift boxes, I would try to lift every single box and then do it again and do it again. And so my relentlessness and my energy has allowed me to really achieve more than I probably should for my other skills. But that's I just never ever ever give up. I constantly try to change things that I can't or I shouldn't.
Fascinating. Now, how did you figure out what your superpower is?
I really this journey of writing and this journey of really, finding myself in being the CEO of i280 now for, almost 10 years. I really thought a lot about what is it that I bring to the table? What is it that people would say about me? What is it that I do that lose no energy? And it's really just my relentlessness. Once I get a task, whatever it is at that moment, I just go all out. And when I realized that, the other thing I realized through writing the book and even a little bit before, because I didn't know what I was doing, is I'm a disruptor,
Mm.
meaning that I constantly challenge the status quo. And I had to learn to harness that because that's not always a great thing, but being able to do it in spots. And I'll talk a little bit later about the way I think people should disrupt in a way that's positive and moves us to a better place in the world.
Interesting. Now, I can remember when, and I'm 66 years old as of this recording, and I remember when I was in my late 40s, early 50s, somebody said to me, Catherine, you're really good at a lot of things, but where you're off the chart, they said your skills as a medical intuitive are cannot be taught or learned, right?
Yeah.
And like you can wake me up in the middle of the night and I can read anybody.
Yeah.
I would also agree that there's something relentless about it because it's like I see the truth in people. And
Yeah.
even when they're trying to cover it up.
Yeah, so that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think we all have different, skills and things that we're working on. But like you said, I think somewhere in there, we won't do it now, but somewhere in there is probably the very basic of who you are. I know people who use their superpower are being empathic. They can automatically feel something from people, or some people that their superpower is structure. So I think, I mean, if you kind of break it down to its finest pieces, you probably would find things that you're like, wow, that's really because we do it in one aspect of our life, it's not a superpower. If you do it across everything you do, it's absolutely a superpower.
Absolutely. I use my intuition about everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Making money, saving money, investing money. I always know when to go to the store. I call it cycle shopping. I'm like, okay, I'm here and there's this beautiful rug that I've been needing at 50% off.
That's awesome.
So how can a person discover their own superpower?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of I think a couple of different ways. I'll talk a little bit about disruption, and I think it's a sort of back end way into finding your superpower. So I always say there's three things you should always do. One is be disagreeable, and when I tell people that, they get that's the face they give me, like, Moo, what are you telling people to do here? But being disagreeable is actually a way to learn, right? If you just accept everything, if someone tells you the sky is red and you just accept it, well, then you're not really a person that's looking for truth. So being disagreeable means listening to somebody and then saying, hey, I don't agree, or I don't accept, or I want to learn more. Then you might even learn more and come back to them and say, oh, you were right. But that instinct of being disagreeable is the first step. The second step, which doesn't always go along with being disagreeable, is being optimistic. I joke with people, I said, I wake up every morning and I think I'm 6'7". And you can't tell because I'm sitting in a chair, but I'm not 6'7". And somewhere by the end of the day, I end up being about 5'9", which is my height. But the reason I say that to people is that's how I feel in the morning. I feel like I'm optimistic. I feel like no matter what the challenges that I face, that I'm going to be able to overcome it. So optimistic is that second component. And the last component is relentlessness. Never give up, but that's not really instructive. Find things that would stop you and solve for those things first. Okay, telling somebody to never give up is just like, okay, whatever. But if you can find those things that would stop you from pursuing whatever you want to pursue and solving for those things first, then that will give you that momentum to keep doing what you're doing. So to me, if you use sort of those three things, you'll find something as you're doing those three things where you say, you know what? That's the thing I do all the time. That's the way I look at the world all the time. That's something special and unique to me. And I want to be able to pursue that. Okay, I'm going to be long-winded here. I'm going to talk about two athletes that I think were amazing. Usain Bolt, right? Fastest man of all time. Shelly Ann Fraser Price, fastest woman of all time. Okay. Usain Bolt is 6'5". Everybody said that long people shouldn't run, that they should be in the long distance or they should be in different runs. They weren't sprinters. And Usain Bolt, when he ran slower than everybody else. But because of his stride rate, he ended up finishing first. So he was long and lanky and just taking up space with each stride. So then you say all sprinters should be 6'5". And Shelly Ann Fraser Price is 5 feet tall. Now for her, she has to start quickly, get a lead, and then maintain that lead. Shelly Ann, if she runs like Usain, she's going to lose. If Usain runs like Shelly, he would lose. And so the idea is to harness your individual superpower, find out what that is, and then break records.
I love those stories, and I agree that this is one of the principles in natural healing is that each of us is biochemically unique. You have a unique energy. Your thumbprint is unique.
Yes.
And so what works for you and me may not work for any of our listeners, but we can empower people to find their own unique superpower.
Yeah.
So now, do you have a system in writing your book, Less than 1%? Do you have a system that you could lead people through that helps them find their superpower?
Well, I think the first thing that I would tell people, I don't have a system per se. If you read the book, hopefully all of you out there read the book. But if you'll find what the book is, there are a lot of people who have theories and then find stories to prove their theory. Less
Mhm.
than 1% is about stories. And hopefully, after you read those stories and hear those stories, hopefully some you may have never heard before, you think to yourself, hey, I can see the world in a different way. And so, in back to superpower, the first, maybe the only way that you get to your superpower is to figure out how to be your 100% authentic self. You
Mhm.
have to be your authentic self. And so you can't find your superpower um, wearing a suit if you don't want to. You can't find your superpower using the 7 habits of highly effective people when you have a habit 11 through 46. And so really the first step should be sit down and think, for me, Moo, who is Moo? Who do I want to be? Where am I the most happy? What am I happy? What am I doing when I'm happy? And what do other people say about my ability to impact them? And for me, that's what people say, like, Moo, you never stop. You have too much energy. You're always going. And so now you're starting to think, okay, what does that really mean? And I didn't think of relentlessness as the outcome, but then I realized that, wow, I never, none of the things I've accomplished, which I still don't think are that important, but people say, hey, Moo, you've done a lot, has only become because I said to myself, I want to try to do something I can't. Um, just full disclosure, I want people to be encouraged by the fact that your superpower may not be something perceived as positive. So one of my other superpowers is anger,
Mhm.
right? So think about it. Superpowers, introversion is a superpower. You know, people always think of things they tell us that are positives in society, but there are also energies that we have, like anger for me, which at first it was terrible. I get in fights all the time. I was arguing all the time. When I learned to harness that superpower, it gave me tremendous energy. So I always say I forgive everybody, but I never ever forget. So so I use that energy.
There's a lot of research actually about righteous indignation,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Righteous indignation. It's like you see something wrong in the world, and it's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to set that right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think again, deep introspection. Sounds like, you do it. I think a lot of people kind of know. Sometimes they're afraid. Sometimes they're afraid to really focus in, and it's easier to fit into a box and comply with society's norms of what you're supposed to be. And sometimes you have to just be yourself.
So I love that you said that sometimes our superpower isn't automatically thought of as a positive quality. So one of the things I know about anger is that there's a tremendous amount of energy behind anger, right?
Yes.
So what's the positive aspect of introversion? Because maybe there's somebody who's listening who's like a massive introvert,
Yeah.
thinks I never really want to leave the house.
Yeah, so I mean, and I feel for them. I'm an introvert. I'm kind of an introvert extrovert. I can do a little bit of both. Just the extroversion takes energy away from me. But think about introversion for a second. And obviously, not all introverts are like, we don't want to build a box for them.
Mhm.
But some of them are very thoughtful. The reason they're not out in the world is because they think a lot about different things. Some people who are introverted are people who are very loving and they're connectors, and they can't use that energy with everybody, so they reserve it for a few people. So again, when you really drill, the introversion is a society structure that says you don't want to be around people and that's bad. But there's something beautiful about the real reason that you don't want to be around people. And sometimes it could be your thoughtfulness. It could be you connect so hard that you don't want to connect with everybody. Sometimes it could be that that's the best place for you to be from a mindset standpoint, and that's where your creativity is at its peak. So there's just so many ways. And if you're out there and if you're introvert or if you're angry all the time or if you're a little down, don't worry about that. Really focus in on the reasons, um, and use those skills to change the world.
Beautiful information. And with that, let's take a break and listen to a commercial message from one of our sponsors here at UK Health Radio. My name is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. We're listening to Dr. Mew Tomlinson, author of Less Than 1%. And also, he runs a podcast called Less Than 1%, which we may want to listen to after getting inspired. We'll be right back. So, Dr. Mew Tomlinson, author of Less Than 1%, you say to find our true, authentic superpower, we have to start by being our true, authentic self and knowing who that is. How do people go about discovering who they really are?
Yeah, that's still well, that could be a whole book series. But I think a lot of people already know. I think a lot of people, when people say they're discovering who they really are, they kind of know who they are or what they want to do, and they want permission to be able to be that person. So I would say, what I write about in the book is I write about people who it's easy to write about Hussein because he won, and Shelley, who also won. But I also write about Surya Bonali, right? Surya Bonali is a figure skater, international world-renowned figure skater that never ever won. And so, I think that really the prescription to finding who you are is allowing yourself to be you and really stop breaking out of those boxes, disagreeing, being optimistic, and be relentless and breaking out of those boxes that society has, but more importantly, the boxes that you may have for yourself.
Okay, so how do we break out of the boxes that society puts us in? Because
Well, first, just don't accept them. I mean, and then, and again, if I talk about what happened to me in respect to being a CEO, I've had multiple other situations where I've been pulled over by the police, or where in residency I had a professor that would told me I was from the streets, and I'm like, streets of Toronto. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I mean, I don't know what that means, and so I think the first step is really just rejecting, frankly, what is status quo. Now you might reject some things and you do your research and find out, you know what? They said Moo was angry. And they were right. They were right. I was angry and I needed to figure out how to turn that into positive energy. But I think that anything people tell you specifically about who you are and what your place in the world is, don't listen to them. And you can prove them right and you can also prove them wrong.
So don't listen to other people.
Yeah, don't listen to other people. And honestly, at times, think about it. There are people right now listening to this that are in a job they don't like, right? Or they're in a relationship situation that they don't like. That's the box that they created for themselves. And to have the heart and the strength to break out of that box, you think of any successful entrepreneur, they had to give up something stable to be able to, do something amazing.
So how do we break out of the boxes that society puts us in?
Well, I think first step is rejecting them. I think you're seeing. I don't do politics, but I think a lot of times in politics, you have people who take sides, and I think sometimes you have to be issue based and not side based. That's what I tell everybody who's thinking about politics. It's I don't know. I don't have a side, but you can talk to me about issues, and I might have an opinion. And I think that's one way people can break out the ones that society has for us. But I think also what we need to remember is that society does have a way, it's human nature of putting us into categories. And you and I can tell just talking to you from a little while and obviously you can tell from me, we don't belong in a category. We're one of one. And so, I think the key to breaking out of that box is not necessarily forcing yourself into those categories that people have for you.
I love that. It's funny listening to you because when I was growing up, I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and I saw how most women did, and I remember thinking, God, that's just so boring.
Right.
I didn't want to do that, right? And so I went on my own path, right? And not any path that anyone else has created, but one I created myself. So going back to this whole idea of superpowers, can you give our audience what are some examples of superpowers that you've helped people discover in themselves?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit of a few. I mean, obviously relentlessness, shout out to all the relentless people out there. But then there's also empaths. I really like that one. If you listen to people, you can hear when they start talking about, usually empaths are really high EQ, people who really connect with people. That's another one. I just said no, connectors. I mean, there are people who just their superpower is really getting people together. The other people who, like we talked about, introversion, there's the listeners, there's the people who are doers. There's lots of different things I think you can, but I always force people to get it down to one word. I won't let people give me a long description because if you're doing a long description, that means that, you got to come up with one word. And usually we like to say you can be a captain or, it's like Captain Relentlessness, you know. But the other thing I just say quickly on that too, it's also context as far as what your superpower is. In Toronto, where I'm from, they had a lot of graffiti one particular time, and everybody called these people criminals. And so it's a Start Toronto. It's a program they started where they rent out space, and they took these same criminals and they gave them the space and they created art. They went from criminals to artists. Society's box changed for them, but their superpower still remained the same. Their creativity was still the same. So I think that's an example of people out there think about it. You know, don't worry about the context so much as what is the thing that you love to do that can really impact the world.
Fascinating. Now, once you discover your superpower, how can that help direct your life?
I think once you discover it, it's like the thing you do when you look up and there's 18 hours gone by, you don't even know. It's that thing you do that it brings you happiness, brings you joy. It doesn't require energy, but it is hard. And so that's what I think people don't understand. You can do hard things for long periods of time if it's really your true superpower, as opposed to hard things that are just hard, that are not your superpower, they grind on you. That's how people get burned out. People that have are using their superpower, you never hear them talking about I'm burned out. I don't want to go to work because there's so much energy associated with what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Like if I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, sometimes people ask me about that, and I'm like, this is like I'm a thoroughbred racehorse, and you're putting me on the track and saying, just go. And it's
Right.
exhilarating. It's really fun. And, I've had people say to me, you understand me better than my best friend who's known me for 20 years. So being able to help people understand who they are, what's going on in their mind, body, and soul, and help people really understand themselves and how to be
Yes.
healthy, how to be happy. It's exhilarating.
Exactly. I mean, last year we cared for 2024, we cared for 12 million patients across 27 states. We had over 6,000 clinicians that saw those patients. And I mean, I'm inspired by a lot of the people that do that work. I mean, listen, a lot of this is acute care. So it's emergency department, it's ICU. They're seeing patients on Christmas, they're seeing patients at night. And the fact that they continue to do that work means that they're using their superpower and they're each and every day they're changing lives. So, shout out to all of those people in Vituity and all those, sort of medical clinicians that are around the country that are sacrificing so we can live better lives.
So what is Vituity that you're the CEO of?
Yeah, so I mentioned it. We're a healthcare company. We're actually a healthcare partnership. We have a partnership which is 5,000 physicians. Each physician owns an equal amount. The partner that joined yesterday, I own the same as them. So it's a community, and we care for patients all across. I said 27 states, including or minus DC, depending on you count that as a state. But we're in multiple specialties. So we're in emergency medicine, anesthesia, hospitalist medicine, which are those doctors that take care of you in the hospital, psychiatry, neurology. So we really cover the entirety of the patient care continuum. We're also delving into new and innovative ways, like yourself, of treating patients with functional medicine, where we're really focused on preventing disease rather than just caring for people when they're sick. So I want to move our partnership from a healthcare partnership to a health partnership, meaning we want to focus on making sure people are living their best lives.
This sounds like a totally different new paradigm in medicine.
We listen, I think, I'm a disruptor. I found that out, and I'm trying to push our partnership, but I'm also trying to push healthcare to do things completely different than they ever thought they could do. Because at the end of the day, I think that it's healthcare is a weird um, sort of industry because it doesn't want to move. Even though it changes, it doesn't want to move. So hopefully we're those people that can push healthcare in the right direction.
I love that you talk about being a disruptor because here at the Natural Healing Show, part of what I do is I interview experts like yourself and we talk about what works. So if you have MS or you've got cancer or you've got any other common disease, well, so many people, they delegate their health. They
Hmm.
go to the
Hmm.
doctor, and then doctor says, okay, you've got this illness. They give you a diagnosis, and then you take this medicine, and maybe that works, maybe that doesn't work. But here in natural healing, part of what we do is we talk about what can an individual do to empower their own health. And whether that's physical, energetic, emotional, mental, or spiritual, their environment, their nutrition, supplements, exercise, all of it. It's a bigger picture. Now, Dr. Amu Tomlinson, here we are at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. And a question I frequently ask people is, how do you take care of your own health?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I need to get better at it. The one thing I always do is I talk about a lot of things, but I'm not the expert. I try to ask questions that push people and motivate people. And just like I motivate patients to be able to care for themselves, I can do a better job of doing that. I think that the word you used for it, I think applies to health, which is empowerment. I think you want to empower people to ask questions, to take ownership. I do want to call out, I think, one person that's inspired me as far as health is Magic Johnson,
Mm,
the NBA player, obviously since retired. He wrote the foreword to my book,
mm.
which is a blessing. I still don't understand Magic. I don't understand why you did it, but I'm so blessed that you did. But one thing about Magic, it hit a lot of the things that you talked about. He had has had healthcare challenges in the past, and his attitude. I mean, he is so positive in every situation. I've seen his energy just be so positive. So on one side, I would say to maintain your health, you want to be empowered. You want to get your screenings. You want to, go to see doctors when you need to and don't ignore things that are bothering you. But on the other side, happiness and healthiness and being that positive energy, I'm telling you, it does something to heal your body.
Well, listening to you, obviously you are very, very positive. And, some depression, anxiety are pandemic in our society. And you talked about the second thing that we need to do to discover our superpower is be optimistic. How do you stay optimistic?
Yeah. So I will tell you this. I don't know if I'm positive or not. I feel like all those emotions live in me at any moment. I feel like if I talk to you, I mentioned in the book a time when my son was really sick,
Mm.
and I can't read the chapter because I start crying. And people say, if you're crying, does that mean you're sad? No, those emotions still live right now. I am sad about that time in my child's life. I'm also excited to sit here and talk to you. They can exist together. So I think when you look at mental health, when you look at being optimistic, it's not necessarily that you are looking at the world that everything's going to be great. It means that you believe that you can have an impact in the world. It doesn't mean that the world's amazing. It means that you're amazing and you're going to change the world. And so that's why I think people kind of, oh, well, I'm a pessimist. Well, no, you're not really a pessimist. You just don't want to work hard enough to fix the world. So even if the world's falling down around me, I feel like I need to be the one that changes that. And I'm encouraging everybody else, no matter what it is, to go out there and change the world.
Oh, that's a great answer. And two comments about what you said. I think so many people think when I'm emotionally healthy, I'll never be sad, I'll never be angry. And that's not correct.
Not correct.
You
Not
have
correct.
all of those feelings,
And
right?
that and it, we go back to those boxes. That for me, that's what depression is. That's what anxiety is. When you're trying to fit a box, you're trying to be at the dinner table and be totally happy and smiling when you really want to just break down and cry. Just break down and cry. Break that box. It doesn't emotions live all or it was that movie, I think it was a Pixar movie, where they have all the emotions and they're in the child's brain. They all exist together and they come out at certain times. It's okay to let them out.
Yes, and I love your definition of maintaining your optimism by thinking about what can I do? And
Yes.
there's a great quote by Rumi, only light can drive out darkness.
Yes.
Yeah, so when we find our own inner light and shine that out into the world, then other people can find their way by the light that we shine. And with that, let's take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer here, listening to Dr. Mew Tomlinson, author of Less Than 1%. We'll be right back. So, Dr. Mew Tomlinson, I love the story that you told when you talked about the executive coach and you were talking about, what job you might like. And you said, oh, I might like to be CEO. And the coach said there's less than 1% chance of you doing that, right? So, what happened in your mind when you were told there's less than 1%? Because so many of us, we think, oh, I'll never do that. And you just accept it, and people just automatically give up.
Well, you could probably answer that question. I mean, the first step is disagreeable, right? So the first thing that I went through is actually for me and my superpower, I was also angry. Why? What's wrong with you? You're my coach. why are you saying that? Now, he may not have been saying it out of malice. Shout out, he's still my coach today. So he wasn't saying this out of malice, but he said that because of his particular framework at that time and his assessment of the situation and where I could be. And so I think that for me, I tell everybody I forgive everybody, but I don't forget. And I think that you should always write down. We tend to remember the people that really help us, and we should. I talk in the book about Bob McKillop and how he helped Stephen Curry become the greatest shooter of all time. But you got to remember those people that doubted you. You got to remember those people that said you couldn't, and you need to write their names back. And when you end up doing what they said you couldn't, you should call them, you should text them, you should email them, you should go visit them and let them know that they were wrong.
I love that. I agree with that because there's definitely been people who told me, you're this way, you'll never do that. And in a way it's almost like grist for the journey. It's like I'm not going to give up because they said I could never do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give it away, but in the book, I talk about the fact that he helped me become the CEO. Because if he'd told me, hey, you can do it, I probably would have not done it because I really wasn't interested in pursuing that kind of role. But once he said I couldn't, man, it was over. I was determined at that point.
So going back to your three ways of discovering your own superpower, you said be disagreeable, question things, be optimistic, and then be relentless. Now, as you know, so many people give up easily.
Mm.
Even, when you think about mathematics and, doing long math problems, I think that part of what that does, it trains you to keep at things. Even, it's like there's so many steps in long division. So, how can people find the inner stamina to be relentless?
I mean, I kind of view it as a little differently. I think that people already have the want and the desire and the ability to finish the math problem. I think they already have that. I think what happens is society and then sometimes themselves, they build up these walls, they build up these obstacles to getting that done. And so that's why I say for the work that you have to do to be relentless, you have to think about what would stop you and then solve for that. And so that means that you're starting with the end, which is weird. And people say, I'll give you a great example. And I know people are out there thinking they're applying for a job. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't know if I can do that job because it requires me working from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. And what am I going to do with the kids and I don't believe you should do that. I think you apply for the job and you don't think about anything else until you get it. And then when you get it, you can say, oh, can I really work 9 p to 7? But that's not how we work. A lot of people, they self-select out of a lot of different opportunities before they even know what they're really about. And so to me, I mean, I may be wrong, but I believe that people are already relentless. And they over time, as they get older, frankly, they build up reasons for them to stop. And I'm saying, hey, get rid of those barriers and get going.
So tell us more about that. So you talk about find what would stop you and solve for that. So
Yeah.
give us another example.
Well, I think, let's say you were applying for I don't know, a job.
Hmm.
Or we could yeah, let's say you're applying for an award or a job. And a lot of people will not apply because of rejection, because they may not get the award or they may not get the job or they may get the scholarship. And so they've stopped their relentlessness by putting up a barrier. And so what I would say is imagine yourself if you got that job or if you got that scholarship. Imagine that. So get rid of that barrier. Don't say I might not get it. Say I got it. Now what? And so you're actually removing those barriers.
So you see yourself as having already succeeded.
Already succeeded. I mean, I can tell you, I mean, a long life story here, but I can tell you, I was a rapper until I was 16. And then I was going to play in the NBA. And I didn't realize how short I was. And then it wasn't until I was a DJ in college. And it wasn't until I got, somewhere in college where I was like, I want to go to medical school. And so most people that know me, when they say, hey, you're an ER doc and you're running a $2.6 billion partnership, and they say, wow, I knew you were going to do something. I just didn't know that it was going to be that. And so, I mean, I'm a great example of, you know, just keep going, just keep going.
Keep going. Now, going back to natural healing, are there, as an emergency room physician, someone who's helped people in emergency situations, are there kinds of people when they come to the emergency room who are more likely to survive than others?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things related to diet and, energy and, a lot of stressful things can lead people to have heart attacks and that sort of thing. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the simple things like smoking and being, and not having a weight that's consistent with, sort of your body habitus, all of those things can decrease your survivability and heart attacks and strokes. Sometimes there are things that you can't see, whether it's depression, whether it's like silent hypertension or whether it's anxiety that feed into those things. But like I talked to you about with Vituity, we're really looking at trying to innovate and disrupt healthcare and really get to those other things that we didn't healthcare is traditionally ignored and seeing if we can affect those things.
Yes, because natural healing is very much about prevention, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
living a
Yeah,
healthy life so that you're less likely to need to go to the emergency room or,
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are times, listen, there are times as the ER doc you have to, you cut your arm off, please go to the emergency department. you
absolutely.
know, but there's other times where, I think, ahead of those things, living life in a way that to your point, I mean, you use the term natural. I would, I mean, I'm not an expert in your field, but I would say those things that you do to your body that are not uh, they're not done the way it was built, can oftentimes hurt you.
Well, my hat is off to ER doctors. About 2 years ago, I took one of my best friends to the emergency room while he was having a massive heart attack.
Oh no. Oh no.
I mean, to this day, it was a very traumatic experience. I'm sure it was much worse for him because he was having the heart attack. But again, I used my intuition. It's like, get in the car. We drove there. His blood pressure was 230, his oxygen
Oh,
72, and they were amazing. I mean,
that's
we love natural healing, but as you said, there are certain times when you need the doctor.
yes.
I remember dropping him at the curb, running into the ER and saying, somebody's having a heart attack. They ran out. I went to park the car, and when I came back, there were 10 people in the room and they saved his life.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's a blessing. But
Yes,
I think that's another box that, for another show we can talk about. The fact that we have to separate natural versus allopathic healing means that we never, doctors, and I'm one, and I can take some of the blame here, is that we haven't really expanded healthcare to really take into account the entire patient.
yes, absolutely. And there are people in natural healing who say, I'll never get a vaccine. I'll never go to the doctor. I'll never take a drug. And even as a medical intuitive healer, I'll be like, I've had times when I had a client in my office and it's like, you're going to call the doctor from my office, like
Yeah.
now, because I can see that it's a situation that natural healing will not solve, and it needs another perspective. So, Dr. Moo Tomlinson, final thoughts for our audience. What do you really want the world to know about less than 1%?
Yeah, selling a book, as you know, is can be a challenging thing. And I really wrote the book because I wanted to be able to change people's mind. I want to be able to change your mind out there. And I think for me, just knowing that we all can contribute to society's amazingness, if we just be our 100% authentic selves. And just remember, don't hesitate to use that superpower. And there will be more greatness in the world, if you use it.
Great information. And yeah, and again, I say that there's only one you. And if you're alive, you have a unique vibration. You're already a VIP. You're a vibrational interference pattern. Your energy is unique to you.
Yes,
And if you're alive, it's because the world needs your unique energy.
yes, yes. One last thing I'll say. Sorry, I know that I said that was the last thing. I think people often think that they have to impact a lot of people's lives. And somebody said, "Moo, well, how many books do you want to sell?" And I said, "Well, I feel like I should sell more than Malcolm Gladwell." That's. But the truth is that if one person reads the book and they have a unique, uh, I can uniquely change their lives, then I've done what I need to do.
I love that. Yeah, I know my first book was about how to heal depression without drugs. The most recent version of that is Banish the Blues Now. And then
Yeah.
what drove me to write that book is I thought if I help even one person not have to go through what I went through, it's totally worth it.
Yes. 100%.
Yes.
100%.
So
Awesome.
you've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. My name is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. Our wonderful guest, Dr. Moo Tomlinson, emergency room doctor, CEO of Vituity, author of Less Than 1%, and podcast host of Less Than 1%. You can find out more about Dr. Moo Tomlinson and his wonderful work at vituity.com. And remember, when you discover your own superpower, then you can show up as your true authentic self and be the change that you hope to see in the world. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.